And we welcome any questions now and in the future.
Thank you for your delegation, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here today, Jeff. And before I get going, I just want to make very clear that nothing that I am about to say is personal at all. I met with you guys all on a number of occasions, and I know that you're human beings with a job to do, so I want to make that clear before we get going. But I do, and I do have some questions about the project and how, but I first want to take on or address, you know, why it is we're sitting here on June the 5th at 6:06 p.m. having this conversation. And the reason I ask that is because you met with my assistant Corey and I in the Ward 5 office on March 17th at 9:30 a.m. I remember several of the details of that meeting like they were just yesterday. Zach, you did a good job of explaining your efforts looking for properties in the Carp Road corridor in the industrial area. But when we asked when you would be officially submitting a request for an MSR, Carl, you looked at both Corey and I and you said fall. The first day of fall in 2025 is Monday, September 22nd. And yet on Sunday, May 25th, an odd day to be submitting such a request and an even more odd time of 11:48 p.m., you submitted a request for an MSR approximately 120 days before you said you would, or 4 months early. Can you explain to my colleagues and to the residents of Ward 5 why you submitted a request 4 months early on a Sunday at almost midnight?
Councillor, I guess with all due respect, it comes back to this idea that we need a clear political signal from the city about the importance of building infrastructure in the city where infrastructure is desperately needed. And I think the events that you recall of that time, I don't have the exact recall of that myself. But one of the things that's happening is people are jumping to premature conclusions on things, and they're jumping to the most pessimistic interpretation of the facts before all the information is out. And so one of the reasons why we've had to come forward with the MSR at this time is because we do need to understand whether there will be a fair and robust evaluation process that we will submit this project to.
Thank you. But I'm wondering what exactly prompted the letter asking for an MSR to be drafted and sent on the weekend at almost midnight on a Sunday?
Yeah. I mean, the letter was sent out on Sunday night. It had been sort of in the works the previous week. And what caused that to be is just an internal company decision. Looking at the schedule, looking at sort of what we need to do from a project perspective, we thought the time was right to go forward and try to figure out where everybody stands on this project.
Okay. Did you discuss the Marchurst BESS with the Minister of Energy anytime between December 1st, 2024 and May 25th, 2025?
December 1st and May
December 1st, 2024 to
Yeah.
May 25th, 2025.
I myself did not speak directly to the Minister of Energy, no.
Did any of your lobbyists?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did you discuss the Marchurst BESS with the Associate Minister between December 1st, 2024 and May 25th, 2025?
Councillor Kelly, I'll have to get back to you with specifics on that. I mean, we have been apprising the ISO. So the ISO contacts us every quarter and asks for an update on the project. And certainly, given the importance of the file, the Associate Minister of Energy, I'm sure, was apprised of that at some point, yes.
I'm sure given your role, you would have many interactions with them. Did you speak with or hear from the Associate Minister of Energy or the Minister of Energy on or around Friday, May 25th?
On May 25th?
Or around that date?
Directly with the Minister of Energy? No.
Associate Minister?
I don't believe so.
Any of your lobbyists?
I don't believe so.
Okay. At any point, have you requested a ministerial zoning order from the province for either the Fitzroy or the Marchurst BESS projects?
It is a discussion that we've had with the ministers to understand what the options are on the table, yes.
But did you request them to do that?
I do not recall exactly the language that was used, but it's certainly something that's been discussed, yes.
So you did discuss a ministerial zoning order on which project? Was it Marchurst or Fitzroy?
On both projects, for that matter, yes.
So we aren't missing anything. Just by coincidence, you submitted a request for an MSR 4 months early out of the blue at midnight on a Sunday 2 days after the Associate Minister of Energy visited Ottawa and a little more than a month after Minister Lecce sent a letter to the mayor pressuring him for an MSR?
We sent the letter requesting the MSR to Ottawa City Council on Sunday night. That's right. Yes.
Thank you. Very coincidental. After council denied an MSR for the Fitzroy BESS, you indicated that you were motivated to do a more robust consultation to address community concerns. Is it your position that for the Marchurst BESS that your consultation was successful?
I would say that's a vast improvement over where we were at Fitzroy. I think that there's still work to be done, and we remain committed to do all of the consultation that's required of us to work through this development approvals process. I will say, and I listening to everybody here and listening to the comments for the last number of months, these are complex issues, and there's a lot of interwoven things that are going on here, some of which are Evolution's responsibility. Some of them are sort of the agencies that are conducting these procurement processes. And so there's a lot of questions, and I certainly understand that it's a complex sort of social environment to build infrastructure projects. But we do remain committed to working through these consultations and trying to navigate these complex issues. And we look forward to your leadership and the council's leadership around these questions.
Jeff, you mind if I build off that?
Yeah.
So as Jeff mentioned, I've developed over 2,500 megawatts of energy projects in North America, largely in Ontario, natural gas, hydro, wind, and now looking at BESS. A very exciting time. The public consultation I've seen to date on this project had exceeded the full life cycle of any of the other projects I've developed in my career. And this is large mass utility scale projects that go through full Class EA, full public consultation processes. So I just want to reemphasize that our public consultation here has, from my standpoint, been extensive. We've listened to communities' comments. We've heard concerns around fire safety and groundwater contamination and soil contamination, to the point where we have already, before any of the city processes, have taken considerations in our planning. And there's two big ones that I would like to make sure everybody in this room is aware of. We're specifically selecting vendors and working with partners who only adhere to the highest level of standards with NFPA 855 in UL 9540A. And any suppliers that are supplying batteries must have a proven burn test, as Mark Kellenberger from DNV had shown earlier, to make sure that the containers, if they do incur a thermal runaway event, they do not propagate container to container. And to groundwater contamination, this is the other one I just wanted to bring up, is we are doing something that, as one of the other delegates had mentioned before, has not been seen yet for these types of facilities. We will be installing an impermeable barrier in the subgrade across the entire site and in the stormwater retention pond. In the event that there's ever any incident, there is not a chance of leaching into the groundwater table. And the first step of our emergency response protocol, if there is some form of event that might require dousing of water onto a container, there's a sealable shutoff on our very extensively large stormwater pond that will completely isolate the facility from draining into the natural aquifer.
My question was about whether or not your consultation was successful, but I do appreciate that information.
Could I, Dr. Kelly, could I just follow up with that? The consultation is successful because we're hearing things and we're implementing them. There was even delegates today who said, that we've evolved
Jeff,
the project based on feedback, and that's part of what consultation is.
Yeah.
I apologize.
We're getting a little closer to debate here, so I'll question and answer, question and answer. Questions, share.
I want to reference a couple lines in an email that you sent to me on February 8th, Mr. Wright. One of them is, we want to absolutely assure you that our intentions for the event on February 23rd are to address every single question from every single attendee. Is it your opinion that you addressed every single question from every single attendee?
I would say that we took every single question from every single attendee. Whether we are able to provide a complete answer to every question, the answer is no, but that's part of the process. Once we do all of these technical studies and we have experts evaluating those studies, we will have answers to all those questions. But I guess it is my opinion that we took every question on board and we gave as much information as we had at the time as part of the process.
Thank you. Later on in the email, you said, looking forward, we will continue to host community engagement events for the residents of West Carleton, and we'll be grateful for your participation in those sessions. Can you give us a run through on all the community engagement events that you held after February 23rd?
Ladies and gentlemen, please answer the question.
Well, I guess up till now, we haven't done another public consultation. What ended up happening after February 23rd, I believe that you came out with a statement that basically said that you do not support this project.
I did, yep.
And from my perspective, that sort of truncated the process, and that's what took us to this point here. So I think the point is we are committed to doing more consultation. We're having a number of informal meetings with people over time. I've done a number of industry events throughout Ottawa to understand the need for this project. But I think the issue is we need to get a clear signal that this is an important piece of infrastructure that needs to be built to support economic growth in Ottawa and for Ontario. And that's why we're here in front of the committee, to get a sense of where council stands on that issue, because we need that clear political signal.
Thank you for confirming that no additional events were held. On February
Chair,
3rd.
if I may, sorry. We did have additional public consultation in person, door to door on John Asselford and the surrounding areas on multiple occasions after February 23rd.
Thank you.
Just to 100% clarify.
Gentlemen, I'd like to hear a question. I'd like to hear an answer, and I'd like the audience to be silent, please, while that is playing out. We come to order or we move on. Last warning. Vice Chair, proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. On February 3rd, I sent Mr. Wright an email with feedback from many of my residents who had not yet made up their mind about this project, indicating the strong consensus from the community was to be able to attend an event where questions could be posed and answered so that all attendees could hear the answers. You decided not to accept that, and that was your right to do so. And I would say that the meeting was well attended, and I heard some good dialogue between people. I was a little disappointed that it wasn't adopted, but I was pleased to hear your response. And in your response, you said, beyond providing residents with information as to the status and proposed future plans of the South Smart project, it will be an important opportunity for us to directly hear about local concerns and ensure that we've prepared detailed answers on every subject for an open mic style town hall session that will be scheduled next month, aiming for the week of March 17th. To that end, please let us know when your office has any strong, or if your office has any strong preference on timing. Can you confirm for me when that town hall session took place?
Councillor Kelly, I don't believe that you responded to our email with respect to that date, or a follow-up email around that point.
Can you confirm when you scheduled that town hall?
That town hall has not been scheduled yet.
Thank you. Okay, so we've established that the town hall event you promised my residents did not occur. Now let's head back to the February open house at West Carleton Secondary School. Like I said, it was well attended. And I'll admit that there were attendees there who have no intention of ever supporting the Marchurst BESS. The vast majority of people there came with an open mind and genuinely wanted some answers from their main questions and concerns. The majority of the people in my ward who are concerned with this project are concerned due to the location selected and the impact that it may have on the land that has been farmed for generations and is directly adjacent to wetlands and important and ecologically significant land. So it was encouraging to see that at the open house, you had a list of clearly labeled studies completed at South March to date. I do have a picture of that board from the day. And you have botanical inventory, breeding bird studies, breeding amphibian studies, bat acoustic studies, spring aquatic habitat and fish community assessment, and Blanding's turtle habitat assessment. When I reached out to get clarification on what the studies were completed, I received a long and somewhat unclear answer. So I will ask again today. Is every study that I just said, they were all completed by February 23rd?
So the studies involve a seasonal component, and sort of the winter season had been completed for a number of those studies. The studies themselves are part of a phased thing, and maybe Carl, I can get into that, but there's a number of pieces to those studies. And I think we are working towards all of the technical work that will go into the material that Steve Willis just laid out for us as part of that sort of next phase of the development approvals process.
But just to be clear, were those studies that I just listed completed on February the 23rd?
The desktop and preliminary Preliminary seasonal studies were completed. There are some subsequent summer studies that are still to be remaining.
Okay. And I won't ask for details of the study, but surely you can tell me on what date you completed the spring aquatic habitat and fish community assessment?
I mean, we can get back to you with that specific detail. I'm not quite sure what the point is there. The studies are underway and they will be submitted as part of a comprehensive package.
I'll tell you exactly what my point is that there's an ED at the end of complete. And that insinuates past tense. It insinuates that these studies are done.
As Carl mentioned, elements of the studies are done. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you. So obviously potential fires and how they would be handled has been one of the top concerns, and there are well-documented cases of battery and BESS fires all over the world. And following the open house, it was brought to my attention by a local member of our community that you had used the OFS logo on your information boards. When I sent an email to Evolution the next week asking for pictures of the boards as they appeared at the open house, I received an email that had mysteriously omitted the boards where the OFS logo was used. So I reached out to the OFS and they confirmed here that OFS was not consulted or provided approval to use their logo and requested that our logo be removed from the poster board, which you did. So whether intentional or not, the inclusion of the logo led some to believe that there was a partnership or an approval. I think it may have even possibly confused one of my colleagues who actually went so far as telling people that the OFS had endorsed the project when they clearly had not. So, and you've heard members of the public raise this today. Would you agree that not seeking approval to use the logo, omitting the pictures from the boards in an email to me, did not help build trust with the community?
Through the chair, Councillor Kelly, we do sincerely apologize. We accidentally had used the OFS logo. The intent of that slide was not to show that OFS had endorsed our sites or Evolution. The intent was to identify the authority having jurisdiction in the local code requirements in NFP 855, which there were other logos on that file. I had an off the record discussion with Chief Hutt from the OFS, sincerely expressing our apologies and to reiterate that intent.
Thanks, Chair. I shouldn't be too much longer, and I do hate to beat a dead horse, but I just realized that the email I was referencing before we went to my colleagues was written on May 22nd. That's only 3 days before you submitted a request for an MSR. And this email does mention that you still require an MSR, but it does not mention that one is coming soon. Why did you know on May 22nd that you would be submitting a request for an MSR on the 25th?
Councillor, I can't recall exactly the timing of all the discussions. It would have been around that time once we made the decision to move forward with the request for the MSR. It was based on some internal discussions with the company that we need that clear signal from council that there is going to be a fair and robust evaluation process. So whether it was May 22nd or May 23rd, I cannot recall.
And
Vice
Jeff, if you don't mind me adding.
Please wait, Carl. Vice Chair, I would suggest that Ottawa City Council has instructed this committee to make a recommendation on this matter. And if there's another line of questioning, perhaps
That was my last question about the MSR.
Perfect.
And I wanted to get back to the fire. So March 22nd, another email from Mr. Wright. We're also grateful for the ongoing support from members of the community, including many residents who attended our open house on the 23rd, and would like to highlight two reoccurring themes. First, a number of residents shared their concerns about fire safety preparedness protocols. Second, we've heard a strong desire to have these plans reviewed and validated by Ottawa Fire Services. I couldn't agree more. I'm glad that you heard the desire, and of course the assumption from our community and me as their representative, which I thought was clear from day one, is that this would be done in anticipation of a request for an MSR. Because of course, how can I or we support this until we feel that the main concerns have been addressed? Can you please confirm that Ottawa Fire Services has not just received, but reviewed and validated these plans?
So where we're at right now, we've submitted our other sites ERP, and that is in review. We've also submitted our South March draft ERP for information as we are hosting an on-site training with the emergency responders at Station 45 this upcoming June 24th. and that will include the site-specific South March plan. They will be having feedback on it, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Chief Hutt's team. My feel is that they are going to wait to make a formal review on our emergency response plan until we've submitted our zoning bylaw amendment application.
And, had we done this in the manner that we had decided we would have been able to have all of that information at hand at the time. I do want to, and I promise, Chair, that I will be quick with the rest of this. Your FAQ page. So there's questions about fire risks, the one road in and one road out on John Alsiford, and that community's anxieties about how you would respond to an emergency, or how local authorities would. Local to fire training, equipment, risks of particulates contaminating the air, and all of the answers are at most 2 paragraphs. So given that well water contamination and fire response have easily been the top 2 concerns, and you have known this since November 2023, do you think that the level of concern and detail is what the community was looking for when deciding if it could support the biggest project ever proposed in our ward using relatively new technology?
I think we're still going through the process. As I had mentioned earlier, Councillor Kelly, we heard those comments. We've actually factored in what we thought was a great way to address those comments into our designs and planning. We haven't had the time yet to formally raise that up. It is a very significant undertaking to process these plans and get them to a point where we can put them into people's inboxes. Rest assured that is going to happen. We are going to give people the closure on those plans and how we've implemented those comments. In all fairness, from what I see from our side, from a schedule standpoint, we just still haven't had enough time.
And again, I was very happy to see another line in this email. So I'd like to reiterate the promise that our team will continue to make every effort to engage with your constituents in an honest and straightforward manner. So do you think that speeding up this process and submitting that earlier than you said you would is in alignment with that goal that you stated on March 22nd?
Councillor Kelly, we remain committed to consultation, and I don't think the decision around the MSR will impact that commitment one way or the other. The MSR is directed to City Council to ensure that there's a political support for a fair and robust evaluation process, so that there's a proper assessment in a balanced way of all the risks and the benefits of this project.
Okay, thank you. And this is my final question, Chair, I do promise. And I will reference one more time an email that you sent on March 22nd. We take seriously our responsibility to develop a project that is both welcomed by the community and can deliver on the province's foremost economic objectives. Now, obviously, you have satisfied the province given their sudden urgent demand that we make this happen. But do you truly believe that you have satisfied both the province's economic objectives and a project that is welcome in the community? Because I certainly think both are important, and the latter is much more important to me, and I believe should be to all of us.
Yeah, Councillor Kelly, as I said at that time, we do remain committed to make sure that this project is accepted by the community and welcomed by the community. So we will continue to do consultation, provide information, and try and build that trust with the community.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I get going into the substance of my remarks, I wanna say one thing. I heard 0 residents of my ward come to that table today and say, we don't think there's a place for this technology anywhere. What their concerns were about consultation and location. And today was important because it is likely the last opportunity for the comments of the residents who will be most impacted by this installation to make a difference to anybody. Chair Brown, I want to echo here today that I very much appreciate the effort that you put in last week to convince our colleagues that this project at the very least needed to be discussed here at the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee. At the same time, I want to echo my comments from last Wednesday, and that I am incredibly disappointed that it actually took those efforts to convince colleagues not to ram this through with a walk-on motion at council. Though there will be time to speak to this at committee during the discussion of a zoning bylaw amendment, by that point, this will essentially be a done deal. According to the provincial government and some of my colleagues, it already is. It will be and has been presented by some to council and to the media that we will still have the opportunity to discuss this and make changes and even deny this process from moving forward. But that is a partial truth at best. Yes, in theory, changes can be made during that period and a denial is possible. In practice, however, that does not happen. In fact, of the 214 zoning bylaw amendments that have been presented to council in this term, only 3 have been denied, and 2 of those were because city staff recommended their refusal. In the 212 other instances where city staff recommended supporting the amendment, only a single one was refused. We do not refuse zoning bylaw amendments, plain and simple, regardless of how often we all hear that this is a possibility. Previously, we heard from Agri-Food Canada that the approval of a building height near the experimental farm would irreparably harm their ability to conduct research, and no denial is forthcoming. We cannot even push to make changes to an application that could impact the future of food production for our country, so I have very little hope that anything concrete can possibly happen after council provides an MSR. For that reason, I will not support giving an MSR to the applicant for this project. This process has been flawed from the beginning, with the applicant saying they are listening and hearing concerns from residents, and yet almost 2 years after they first came into Road 5, can't offer a detailed explanation on how a fire or other emergency will be handled. No one at the city, no one at the province, not the applicant, no one can tell residents who live near the proposed site who would be responsible if their well water was contaminated. 2 years in a row, I delegated to the Minister of Energy and then the Associate Minister of Energy, and in both cases, I, along with some of my rural colleagues, were assured that no means no and that community support was important to this provincial government. The requirement for the MSR was their initiative, touting that municipal and community support are important, and then they turn around and send letters and visit municipal representatives to tell them that they better hurry up and approve it. This may come as a surprise to some, but this is also a government that has used the tool of a ministerial zoning order 114 times from 2019 to 2023, which is a 17-fold increase in the usage from previous 20 years. So saying that they care about the public concerns and then steamrolling over the process is certainly in keeping with how they operate. The IESO, provincial crown court responsible for these procurements, seems to care little about healthy discussions or for the well-being of the communities where these projects are proposed. They gave a contract to an applicant that did not receive an MSR and have decided that their policies have changed and that they will never do this again. This left my community in a very difficult spot with much uncertainty and angst about this issue for well over a year. I still to this day have not gotten a straight answer as to why they felt the need to do this. I also invited the IESO to take part in a Ward 5 town hall meeting on energy and the grid and BESS specifically. They decided not to come and take part. This left our community without an independent, reliable source of information on this technology and why the province was going in this direction. This created and fostered an environment where residents had to rely on the applicant for information, and given the massive financial interest, consultation and some missteps along the way in terms of consultation with the public, trust was lost. Some will have you believe that this is simply a NIMBY fight or a bunch of rural people who fundamentally oppose to anything that has to do with fighting climate change. They are wrong. I will remind my colleagues that I remain to this day the only councillor who has brought a motion to provide an MSR for a BESS facility. Our ward is home to several large solar farms, several hydroelectric dams. We are not opposed to being part of the solution, nor are we opposed to large-scale projects. We have a landfill, a large garbage and recycling sorting depot. We have quarries and pits. We have cement batching plants. I remain convinced that the majority of my residents do not oppose this technology outright, but believe that there is an appropriate place for a project of this scale and that this location is not a place where our community is comfortable putting this project. Further to this, some very reputable organizations have also provided their opposition to this project in its current location. In closest proximity, you have the Friends of the Carp Hills, a progressive science and evidence-based organization with the goal of protecting the very important and environmentally significant lands that surround this site. We have the Ottawa Carleton Wildlife Centre who are opposed to the project in this location. We have the Ontario Farmers Association local chapter who is opposed to the project in the proposed location. We have the Carleton Landowners Association who is against this project in this location. And we have a combined over 2,000 residents in my ward who have signed petitions against this project and the Fitzroy BESS. Very, very few people are outright opposed to this technology. There was a great opportunity here to do this right, to find a location that worked for the community, to consult in a meaningful way with the public, and to truly show residents how and why they could embrace a project like this. But that didn't happen. And even worse, the process has been cut short to try and ram this through. So in the end, maybe we will prove the naysayers right, that the process is a sham. And to the many who have a role in it, consultations and community buy-in are buzzwords and boxes to tick, rather than necessary and meaningful steps to actually getting public support. I will ask my colleagues here today to say no to an MSR for this project. Thank you very much.